Alright, so today what I wanted to do was take a look at something that's taking kind of the whole community by a wave in the moment, and everyone's talking about it and discussing it, especially online. And it's an interesting one because it's very diverse on the opinion of it, and I'm sure you've probably seen it by now. But basically, people are talking about and asking about a remake of the remake of Resident Evil 1, but in the same style as the Resident Evil 2 remake, or 3 remake, as well as 4, or in the same vein as 7 and 8. So basically, a third-person over-the-shoulder version or a first-person version of the first game. Now this is something I've seen brought up multiple times across the releases of the 2-3 remake, as well as the kind of up-and-coming 4 remake. People always talk about it in the same vein, how it would be really cool to have that game in a kind of a modernized remake version. And for a while, I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But looking back now, from having that opinion myself to now, it's definitely changed, especially after playing through that game again fairly recently. And there's two sides to it that kind of make sense for it to be remade, and then there's some where it really doesn't. But I want to say straight out the gate right now, Resident Evil Remake is perfect. There is nothing wrong with it. It is really good, it looks really good, it plays well, it does feel old school, which is kind of good because it gets the same kind of gameplay, how you kind of move around and your inventory. It's all still there, and it feels really, really good. Also, it looks good as well, and there's plenty of replayability with it, as well as new additions to the game, like Lisa Trevor, who isn't there in the original game at all, and it is a really good remake. Now, do I think they need to do it again? No, I think they kind of hit gold with it the first time around, and really don't need to do it again. I have no issue with it, even now, playing it now. It's a fun game, it's enjoyable, there are moments that are very memorable with it, and having it in a first and third person perspective, while it would be cool, it isn't necessary. Like, literally, all it would be is the remake we've got now, probably another increase of graphic detail and stuff like that, and then a third or first person perspective. That's literally all it will be. It'll probably be the exact same if they did do that. So in my eyes, it does feel kind of pointless to do it now, especially with it already having that remake anyway. I think there's more resources they should spend on remaking games that people want to see more. So obviously we've got 4 that's coming, 9 is most likely going to be after 4, and then obviously we've got Code Veronica that people want remade as well, which again, I'm not a big fan of anyway, but a lot of people do want to see that game remade. And yeah, if it did get remade, I'd probably give it another shot. So remaking a remake is kind of ridiculous. That being said, there is the other side of the coin where a lot of people do kind of make some valid points, and I don't necessarily agree with them myself, but they are valid points. Mainly them being newer players are used to the newer games, with their first person games, or the remakes we have now, and going back to that game, although it looks good and plays good, the controls throw people off, the voice acting still throws people off, and they don't like it over the current remakes and the current games. So again, to the newer players of the series, the people that joined through the remake cycle and through the reboot of 7 and 8, if on their perspective it makes sense, I would always encourage those people to play their game and just see it through to its end, because I always was nervous about playing those games when I first bought the Resident Evil remake, and when I first played the original Resident Evil, like fixed camera angles. I was like, I don't really want to play it, kind of fixed camera angles, but I stuck with it because I wanted to play the game for what it was. And by the time you start playing it, when you're a couple hours in, when you're 1-2 hours in, when you've done a few things, you kind of get used to it real quick. Yes, it can still be fiddly, where you turn a corner and you have to bait a zombie, or you turn a corner and it's immediately there and you die. But there are ways around that if you learn how the system works, and it really does pay off if you just bear with it. I think the thing about that as well that people really kind of dig about is obviously how the game plays and stuff, but those people who say, I don't want to play Resident Evil Remake because it's a fixed camera angles, the controls are really tanky, have played and really like Resident Evil 4, which still has tank controls, although it's in third person, it still has tank controls, and that doesn't really make sense to me. Like Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 5, you are stationary when you shoot, you can't move when you are shooting at all, and yeah, you kind of do have to fiddle around with the controls a bit at first, and again, having played it recently with a friend who has never played the game before, it takes some getting used to, but that's kind of the same with the old games. Controls are the same, camera angles are there, and you still have that tank control system. So if you can get used to it in Resident Evil 4 and 5, then you can probably get used to it in Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3 as well. In fact, what I would encourage any PlayStation player to do is, if you have the premium tier of PS Plus, download the director's cut of Resident Evil 1, which is the PS1 version, play that, then play the remake if you have it, because again, I think that was on PS Plus a couple years ago. If not, it's usually on sale. And play that, and it'll feel better. Like you'll be so used to it that remake will just feel natural to you. So I really encourage people to play those games how they are, because it's part of the game. You know, like I think that was the best thing to do with the Resident Evil remake, is to keep the controls, the camera angles the same. And obviously with Resident Evil 2 and 3 they decided to change it, and I think that worked really well. But they both work well. One isn't better than the other. Like, I like all the perspectives of the Resident Evil games. I like the fixed camera, I like the third person over the shoulder, I like the first person. They're all really good and they really work in their respective game. And I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool to have the game in first or third person perspective. Just an example, and I'll leave a link to it in the description. There is a team of people that are working on a remake of Resident Evil 1 in a third person perspective, and it looked good. It genuinely does look good and it does fit the game. But obviously that's not official. And if you really want to play a third-person version of the game, or even a first-person version of the game, because I think there is another one as well, there's a first-person version. If you have a PC that runs the first game, go and play those, because that'll give you an idea of what it will feel like. And while it will feel a bit janky, because it's a community-made game, you'll get a rough idea of what it would feel like in an official release, if they decide to do that. But yeah, overall, do I think it needs another remake? Absolutely not. I've made a video like last week now, I think, about remakes in general. They are kind of at a point where they should probably take a break from them after 4 comes out. I have no issue with them, but they are kind of like, they're always there. They'll probably take a break anyway, because Resident Evil 9 is most likely the next launch after 4. But, you know, I like them, they're good. But also, you could spend a lot of that time making some new games and seeing how people react to those. And then maybe throw out a remake every so often for like special occasions, like anniversaries and stuff like that. That would be cool. Or, if you really wanted to, just port the originals onto the new consoles. Resident Evil 1's already there. Just put 2 and 3 there and we're good. But yeah, that is going to do it. Leave your thoughts on the whole kind of situation in the comments below. Do you want to see another remake of Resident Evil 1? Do you like it how it is? Do you prefer the original over the remake, or the remake over the original? Do let me know. But yeah, thank you all for coming by. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more Resident Evil and Capcom games content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.